Welcome back to Read This Next with Laura and Nicole from the Thunder Bay Public Library. This week we are talking about nonfiction grab bag items, which we might have to workshop a better title for, but that's essentially what it is.
Yes, just books that have, in some cases, these are ones that have been on my to-read list for a while, that basically just the title and the topic grabbed me, or, literally something we saw on the shelf that grabbed our attention. So kind of just interesting pop nonfiction titles, basically.
Heck yeah. Just good stuff. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of different stuff. If you're not into nonfiction, you'll probably be surprised because these are very wild topics, some of them.
Yes, wildly varied and very wild.
Yeah, so for our first wild one, we'll be discussing Seduction, a history from the Enlightenment to the present by Clement Knox.
Yeah, that's right. And great cover.
Oh yeah, is that Botticelli?
That's a classic. Yes, I believe that's Venus rising out of the sea.
Oh yeah, classic Venus.
Yes.
All right, so here is the description. If sex has generally been a private matter, seduction has always been of intense public interest. Whether the stuff of front-page tabloid news, the scandal of 19th century American courts, or the stuff of literature across the eras, we are fascinated by stories of seduction and sex. In the first history of its kind, Clement Knox explores seduction in all its historical and cultural incarnations. Moving from the Garden of Eden to the carnivals of 18th century Venice, and from the bawdy world of Georgian London to the saloons and speakeasies of the Jazz Age, this is an exploration of timeless themes of power, desire, and free will. Along the way, we meet Mary Wollstonecraft, her daughter Mary Shelley, and her friend Carolyn Norton, and reckon with their fight for women's rights and freedoms. We encounter Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight champion of the world, who became entangled in America's labyrinthine and racialized seduction laws. We discover how tall tales of predatory vampires, hypnotists, and immigrants were mobilized by Nazis and nativists to help propel them to power. We consider how after seduction seemingly vanished from view during the sexual revolution, it exploded back into our lives as The Game became a multi-million bestseller. Online dating swept the world, and the ongoing male fascination with manipulating women was exposed. That sounds like a very long book.
It does. It sounds like it covers a lot.
Yeah.
But I also feel like you could probably jump around a bit too, to like different like time periods or whatever that interest you, and kind of get the details about those.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then it goes right up to present day, like even like incel stuff.
There's one more paragraph that I didn't read, and I won't read it, but yeah, it's about present day Me Too and incel culture.
Yeah. Yes, big topic. Very interesting, kind of like looking at the trajectory and how it intersects with women's rights, and then also how it intersects with racism and classism, and
very intersectional.
Exactly. What an interesting cultural history.
No kidding.
Something
people don't like to talk about either.
And as they should, especially about how, vampires and Nazis intersect, because that honestly is something I've not heard of before.
I am intrigued for that reason alone, would put that on my list.
Even if you just read that chapter, just like, what is the connection here?
Yeah, what the heck?
That's strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a strange one.
Read on to find out about it.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, so that's a fairly recent title, obviously. I guess like Me Too is not that old.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that is a fairly new book you could check out. All right, our next one. This one I read, and I said to Nicole that actually I found I'd read a bunch of these pieces before, or like versions of these pieces, because I've actually read a fair bit of this author. And she writes for a lot of online magazines, basically. Like I think she's been published probably in like the New Yorker and Salon and Slate, and I think she started out at the AV Club. If any of those sound familiar to you at all or not.
They sound familiar to me.
Anyway, she's also won a Pulitzer Prize, which I did not know.
Good for her.
Good for her. So this book is called I Like to Watch, Arguing My Way Through the TV Revolution by Emily Nosbaum. Yeah, I'll say New Yorker. From the New Yorker's fiercely original Pulitzer Prize winning culture critic, a provocative collection of new and previously published essays arguing that we are what we watch. Yeah, very interesting. She talks about her passion for television that begins with stumbling upon Buffy. And then she talks about different, kind of relates, each chapter, each essay is about like a specific show or kind of subsection of show.
Neat.
So you can kind of jump around to the different parts you're interested in a little bit. Yeah, really interesting. Her career as a critic and how she was one of those critics who very much looked at the intersection of the story that's being told in our culture, not just the story as an isolated item.
Yeah, it doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Exactly. Although some people like to pretend it does, but it doesn't. Yeah, and she looks at female protagonists specifically and how they've changed, the role of sexual violence on TV, and what to do about art when the artist is revealed to be a monster.
That's current.
It's current. Yeah, not that I'm saying this person is a particular monster, but one of the things that she engages with is the some of the allegations against Joss Whedon.
Yep.
As someone who, like, as she said, she started out her passion for TV with Buffy, which is a Whedon show, right? So it's like, how do you reconcile how the stuff that you enjoyed and the things that you thought were worthwhile and valuable, and now you know more about what was going on behind the scenes, and you know more about what this person, how he presents himself to be, does not appear to be who he truly is. Difficult things to engage with. And yeah, interesting, this book. If you don't tend to read a lot of, you think of yourself as not reading a lot of nonfiction, or even that you're not like a big reader in general, it's just like reading a long form, a bunch of long form, like online posts. Really, it's what this one is.
It's like a Tumblr post, but
it
really
kind
long.
of is, but like a little longer, honestly. Interesting, makes you think, right? Provocative about the TV. She does some really interesting stuff about Hannibal.
It sounds like it'd be really similar to like fandom studies in university, or pop culture studies.
Yes, indeed.
Interesting. Did you went to Lakehead, right?
I did, but that was after my time.
Oh, I was gonna say, did you go to Buffy? Because they did Buffy courses.
Oh yes. No, that was before my time and then after. I did not take the Buffy courses. I never watched Buffy. Not my thing.
I powered through all 7 seasons? Yeah, 7 seasons the month before school started, because I was like, I'm gonna go all in on this class, and it was amazing. It apparently has the most scholarly articles written about it, more than any other TV show.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
So, and she's also very interested in looking at how we can stop privileging a hierarchy of elevating one form of culture over the other, like something that's considered prestige TV, like
Sopranos.
The Sopranos, yeah, exactly, or Mad Men or whatever, versus like a comedy like Brooklyn Nine-Nine or something, and show. Saying what's more worth, what has more worth than others, kind of detangling that.
Yeah, that's cool good. Too.
Yeah, quite good. A book that celebrates television as television.
I love it. Yeah. I love it.
One to check out.
Absolutely. And for another one to check out, we're doing really good segues today. That's my goal. Here we go. The next one is Mad and Bad, Real Heroines of the Regency by B. Coach. Okay. Discover a feminist pop history book that looks beyond the Tawn and Jane Austen to highlight the Regency women who succeeded on their own terms and were largely lost to history until now. Regency England is a world immortalized by Jane Austen and Lord Byron. Did you have something to say?
No, I'm just excited.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That was just my excited face.
Ooh. um, immortalized in their beloved novels and poems, the popular image of the Regency continues to be mythologized by hundreds of romance novels set in the period, which focus almost exclusively on wealthy white Christian members of the upper classes. A lot of privilege there.
Indeed.
But there are hundreds of fascinating women who don't fit the history book's limited perspective of what was historically accurate for early 19th century England. Women like Dido Elizabeth Bell, whose mother was a slave but raised by her white father's family in England.
Her story recently made into a movie.
Really? What movie?
I don't remember, but I'll look it up.
Okay. Carolyn Herschel, who acted as her brother's assistant as he hunted the heavens for comets and ended up discovering 8 of her own, and Lister, who lived on her own terms with her common-law wife at Shibden Hall, and Judith Montefiore, a Jewish woman who wrote the first English-language kosher cookbook. That was a fun sentence to say. English-language kosher cookbook. As one of the owners of the successful romance-only bookstore, The Ripped Bodice, has had a front row seat to controversies surrounding what is accepted as historically accurate for the wildly popular Regency period. Yeah, it sounds like she just talks about all these different things. She examines broader questions of cultures in chapters that focus on the LGBTQ and Jewish community, the lives of women of color in the Regency, and women who broke barriers in fields like astronomy and paleontology. In Madam Bad, we look beyond popular perception into the more even vibrant, diverse, and fascinating historical truth.
It's like one of those stories where, well, not stories, it's nonfiction, so it's facts, but about like people in the margins, right, whose stories aren't told. That's like literally exactly what this is. The people who, yeah.
I'm curious. Sorry.
No, sorry, you go.
I'm curious if it's written like, oh, I think I just heard my dog bark. I'm curious if it's written, you know how there's some nonfiction books, like The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, which is written like a story, but it's nonfiction.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm curious if each of them are written like that, or if it's more nonfiction-y.
I do not know.
That'd be very interesting, because those are my favorite kind of nonfiction, when it reads like a story, not. And today we are discussing the Regency.
What, you don't like the textbook style?
No.
What are you saying?
Is that unusual?
I don't think so. That's probably pretty common. Yeah, the movie of her life was a movie called Belle in 2013.
Okay. Love it.
Yeah, like, you know, an adaptation, certainly. But yeah, so you can actually watch the movie, read that book, learn the facts, watch the movie.
Yeah, sorry if you're hearing my dog barking. I almost had to film in the room with him, as Laura knows, but because he was being annoying,
a sad, lonely pup.
Yeah, but he's barking in the other room now, so
it's all right.
Yeah,
he's just interjecting. He's got good ideas.
He's just like, hello, it's lunchtime, come play with me.
So true. We are filming at lunchtime.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Again, super fun. Now, when I was a young person eons ago,
whatever that means,
one of my things I was really into was collecting word books. So I had tons of books about the history of, etymology of metaphors or the history of words that we used to use and we don't use anymore.
Cool.
Oh yeah, I was a big dork in so many ways. So many of these sorts of books, history of language. Anyway, so this next book is also right up my alley. It's called Because Internet: Understanding the New Rules of Language by Gretchen McCullough. A linguistically informed look at how our digital world is transforming the English language. So interesting. Language is one of humanity's most spectacular open source projects, and the internet is making our language change faster and in more interesting ways than ever before. Internet conversations are structured by the shape of our apps and platforms, from the grammar of status updates to the protocols of comments and @ replies. Linguistically inventive online communities spread new slang and jargon with dizzying speed. What's more, social media is a vast laboratory of unedited, unfiltered words where we can watch language evolve in real time. Yeah, so this author basically looks for patterns behind common online linguistic trends, basically. So I try to get that sentence out.
Good use of language.
Thank you. And she explains how your first social internet experience influences whether you prefer LOL in all caps or LOL in lowercase. How interesting. What emoji have in common with physical gestures, and how the artfully disarranged language of animal memes like, so here's one. Do you say lol cats or LOL cats?
I don't say either, but
If you
I would
had
probably
to.
say lolcat. No, I'd probably say LOL cats because
Well,
I'm an LOL kind of gal
you're an
overall.
LOL kind of gal.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, looks at stuff like that. Essential reading for anyone who's ever puzzled how to punctuate a text message or wondered where memes come from. I think also perhaps essential reading for people who get all up in their feelings about how people write on the internet. Because if there's one thing I learned in all of my historical reading about language, it's that English is not, it's not a fixed object, right?
Yeah.
The way we use words has changed so much over the years. I think that it is certainly obvious and true that the speed at which language changes has been sped up.
Oh, yeah.
And then that's because of how much easier it is for things to diffuse across communities. Before, like if a certain town or whatever started using slang for one thing, that meant one thing, oh, now we're going to use it to mean something else. That might disperse gradually over time as people like left town or went away. But now it can just go online. And
that's like the word creeper. I know when I was in high school, that was like a really big one that was coming up. Like if you're stalking someone's Facebook page or whatever, you're creeping their Facebook, which is very interesting. And I'm curious if she talks about the difference between the ages of people who do it, because I know everybody talks about how boomers, when they used technology, they do a ... instead of like no punctuation. Like my mom was really bad for that, but it was just because apparently in postcards and things like that, it's easier to put a dash, it's shorter to put it ... instead of like putting in all those filler words. And then the other day we would go, it just says ... went to the beach ... whatever. It's so interesting.
Conventions. I think she might, right? Because that was one of the things, right? Depending on when you came into the internet, do you use caps for your LOL or not, right?
What do you use?
I do not. I use very little capitalization and punctuation unless if I'm using it for emphasis.
I do. I am all about emphasis. It's like, and how about you do that in cap, and then I capitalize YOU.
Yes. And whether or not I have a G on the end of something is a deliberate choice for some words. And it's very interesting what you say, because like Nicole does our youth advisory council meetings. And then when she wasn't available, and so I did the meeting, and it was online, and we were having a conversation via chat.
Oh no.
And all of the young people were doing like capitalization at the start of their sentences and periods and all this, and I was not. And it was just so funny looking at it, because I was, and I don't know if that's just how they write normally, or if they were thinking of it as this is a semi-professional, like an official sort of thing, so I shouldn't be so casual in my typing. So they're writing like complete sentences, and I'm like, yeah, LOL, blah blah blah.
Oh, I love that.
So I look very casual compared to them, but
whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, interesting. If you're into language, and the evolution of language, I think that could be a really fun one to check out.
Texting language just fascinates me, honestly.
Same.
And I was listening to, or someone else, I can't remember where I heard this. It was probably something on TikTok that I watched. But the understanding and how language works nowadays is so based on context. So like if someone's talking to me about astrophysics and they're saying like the solar of the sun and its penumbra is at 5.2 degrees, I would be like, I don't understand what you're saying, but someone else has the context and understands what that means. By the way, that was all made up. That's probably not accurate at all.
Fact?
No,
Okay.
no true facts. The solar is not penumbra at 5.2. But when it comes to like TikTok and things like that, the way we have context for how we speak. So Vine was a big thing when I was in high school. If you say something like road work ahead, everyone will go, do you know what this one is?
I do. I can't remember the exact.
I sure hope it does. And everybody knows how it ends. But with TikTok, things are moving so fast and you have to see the trend and the audio that goes with it for it to make any sense once the thing has devolved into other things.
Yeah.
Language is so fascinating now because it's like also picture based. I love it.
You know, it honestly always was this fascinating. Just people weren't paying as much attention, I think, as they are now because they didn't have to, right? Because things didn't change as fast. So it wasn't as noticeable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, hey, this is the thing. There's so many other really good books looking at like memes and yeah, because now anyway, fun book. Check it out.
Check it out.
Internet.
Okay, our next one, fun title. Why We Love Dogs, Eat Pigs, and Wear Cows. An introduction to carnism, the belief system that enables us to eat some animals and not others. By Melanie Joy. Absolutely. Okay, very short description, which is nice because I feel like I've read a couple really long ones.
Yeah.
Okay, this book is directed at those who eat meat and argues veganism is the only ethical. This book is directed at those who eat meat and argues veganism is the only ethical and acceptable way of eating. So does that mean it's like people who aren't vegans?
That's right. It should be kind of, there's sort of like an implied comma after meat.
Yeah.
Directed at those who eat meat, space, and argues veganism is the only ethical and acceptable way of eating.
Okay, that's an interesting concept. All right.
Language, once again.
Wow. Wild. Clearly both English nerds.
Yes.
In Why We Love Dogs, Eat Pigs, and Wear Cows, Joy investigates factory farming, exposing how cruelly animals are treated, the hazards meat packing for workers face, and the environmental impact of raising 10 billion animals for food each year for meat, eggs, and milk. Social, psychologist, and vegan, Melanie Joy explores the many ways we numb ourselves and disconnect from our natural empathy for farmed animals. She coins the term carnism to describe the belief system that has conditioned us to eat certain animals and not others. That's fascinating too. Like, why do we think horse? No. Cow? Yeah.
Right? And pigs? I mean, we all watched Babe.
I have not seen Babe.
No, you haven't?
No, but goodness. The most fascinating thing I've heard about, it's on my list. It's on Netflix now, so we're gonna watch it.
Watch it.
So yeah, good. But Alex and I were talking about the director. This is not related, but the director is George Miller, who also directed the
Mad Max movie.
Thank you, and Happy Feet.
Yes.
Like, what? That's such a broad range. She's just like, I'll do this really dystopian movie, and then I'll film Babe.
Okay. I have some background on that. Very brief background. And because it's relevant to this book. Okay. Here's how it's relevant. George Miller, he actually was, like, I think a producer on the first one, and he helped, develop it, but wasn't actually the director. And then he directed the second one. But after working on Babe, he became a vegetarian and has been a vegetarian for the rest of his life.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because of the experience of working on Babe.
Oh, that's so sweet.
which
I
I
I will update you next week after I have watched Babe. I will make a point of it to watch it this weekend because I do want to see it. Because Alex
it's
and I have this
honestly really
joke.
good.
Yeah. Alex and I have this joke that I think stemmed from Tumblr or something that's like perfect names to call your honey or whatever. Babe. Babe 2, Pig in the City. So we always go, Babe. Babe 2, Pig in the City. What's up? So,
I will say, I'm not as big a fan of Babe 2.
sequels.
Yeah.
Hit or miss.
But this topic is something that like we're thinking about a little bit with our son because he's still learning about what he likes to eat and what he doesn't, and he doesn't want to eat eggs. And we think it might have something to do with the fact that he's listened to and read and watched so many stories where like things are hatching out of eggs,
Oh, that
like
could be.
dinosaur eggs, crocodile eggs, bird eggs. You know, anytime we talk about eggs, it's in context of like a cute little creature. And he's like, what
Mm-hmm.
is this?
He's like,
Why are you giving this to me on my plate? I don't understand. So he won't eat eggs.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Could just be because he's a picky 2-year-old.
Could be.
Could be both. Hard to say. But yeah.
Never know until he's older and
Until he's
forgot.
older and can explain more clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Next one. Another amazing title.
Mm-hmm.
You look like a thing and I love you. How artificial intelligence works and why it's making the world a weirder place by Janelle Shane.
All right.
Just super interesting. You look like a thing and I love you is one of the best pickup lines ever, according to an artificial intelligence trained by scientist Janelle Shane, creator of the popular blog AI Weirdness. She creates silly AIs that learn how to name, paint colors, create the best recipes, and even flirt badly with humans, all to understand the technology that governs so much of our daily lives. Yeah, so it's kind of looking at how we increasingly rely on AI to make recommendations, translations. She mentions put cat ears on our selfie videos, and also I would say in like, not that's a joking reference, but also we depend on AI to create and develop and enforce standards of beauty in terms
Mm-hmm.
of all of the filters and like automatic filters and stuff that people use these days.
Absolutely.
How smart is it really? And how does it do the things it does? Smart, often
AI.
hilarious introduction to the most interesting science of our time. This author shows us how these programs learn, fail, and adapt, and how they reflect the best and worst of humanity. The perfect book for anyone curious about what the robots in our lives are thinking.
It's true though, they can be really bad. Like the AI that runs the algorithms for anything. There's
Yeah.
always implicit biases that are in there because the people who code them have biases, whether they know it or not.
Yes.
AI, man, I just keep making me think of other topics. But
Yeah.
did you do you think it's weird that a lot of AI that we speak to is female?
I think that I've read research into that, and it's
Right?
because men feel more comfortable
Feel yeah.
bossing and asking women to do things, female voices.
And they're very passive, and the things you say when like Alexa or Siri can't get your answer,
Yeah.
not great.
No. Well, and there's like that, oh, well, you can get one for your children, and it will basically like not respond until the child says, please. Like you can get like manners kind of filters put on it. So the child has to interact with it more like a
Wow.
person.
No more grandmas enforcing the rules, just AI.
Yeah. Like, oh, it won't put on Baby Shark unless if you ask it nicely.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's a real thing. We do not have a voice activated anything in our home,
No, me
and we
neither.
will not.
I am too scared. I just got plugins that like are smart plugins and I don't like it, but I needed them because I have my little greenhouse right here and the lights turn on automatically,
Yeah.
but I'm afraid.
I just I don't like the idea of Gavin talking to an AI. It just weirds me out. I don't like it.
Isn't
Don't like
there
it.
I feel like we've talked about this as a book or something in a previous
Definitely.
episode.
Definitely. You know what this kind of has ties to is Little Eyes by Samantha Schublin. That was the translated one with the little Furby-esque
Yes.
robots
The
that people had in their
panda-ish looking
houses.
ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Creepy.
Very creepy.
Creepy. Into our Rex then. My recommendation is less about learning things and more just poetry.
A different kind of nonfiction.
Yes, because technically it's nonfiction in the 800 section, if you wanted to know. This one's only available on Cloud Library, though we don't have it in the collection. So this is Love Poems for the Office by John Kenny. Okay. With the same brilliant wit and biting realism that made love poems for married people, love poems for people with children, and love poems for anxious people such hits, John Kenny is back with a brand new collection that tackles the hilarity of life in the office, from waiting in line for the printer and revising spreadsheets after spreadsheet, to lukewarm coffee, office politics, and the daily patterns of your most annoying and lovable coworkers. Kenny masterfully captures the warmth and humor of working the 9 to 5 in today's modern era. What's interesting is at the very beginning he has a Q&A, which is I think just him writing a Q&A.
Sure.
And it's like, why did you write a book about love poems for the office when when everybody's working from home?
It's a good question.
And he was just like, well, it is what it is. I am not a smart man. But the poems are really good. And if you've ever, he writes them mostly like a cubicle based office, but they're applicable to everybody because they just talk about like the one coworker who might not like get the hint that you're busy, or they like linger too much, or like Zoom calls. There's one where he's talking about how your kids are running around in the background shouting, and she leans over like this so that they can't see her, and she's just yelling, husband's name, can you get the kids out of the room because they're being annoying. And then she leans back and everyone's like, reminder to mute yourself. And it's silly things like that which are like, yeah, relatable, I get it. Yeah, so I liked it. It was good.
And it kind of sounds like if you enjoyed that one, then you can check out his other topic poems.
Oh yeah, apparently his anxious people one was pretty good.
I can see that, definitely. Okay, and then my one is kind of a little bit feeds from last week's episode where we were talking about murder mysteries. And it is it's called A is for Arsenic, The Poisons of Agatha Christie. By Catherine Harkup. So this is one of the many fun things about Agatha Christie. She used poison to kill her characters more often than any other crime fiction writer. The poison would be a central part of the novel, and her choice of deadly substances was far from random. The chemical and physiological characteristics of each poison provide vital clues to the discovery of the murderer. So it's not just like in every book, it's cyanide or whatever. Like it'll be whatever is appropriate.
Interesting.
Yes. And then she demonstrated her extensive chemical knowledge. And the reason she had it is because she worked in a pharmacy during World War I and World War II.
Oh.
So she actually had this like hands-on experience. Presumably there wasn't that much call for poison. But around drugs and different substances. And so that's where she got that actual background. So the book, each chapter takes a different novel and investigates that particular poison that was used by the murderer. So fact-packed, fun. Just if you enjoy Agatha Christie's, this is like a totally different lens to look at her books than you have before. And looks at why certain chemicals kill, how they interact with the body, and the feasibility of obtaining, administering, and detecting these poisons. Like digs into whether or not they were actually like, was she kind of
is it plausible?
Yeah, is it plausible, or was she just kind of like, oh well, for the purpose of this book I'm going to say that they were able to get their hands on whatever, right?
Wow, that sounds good for writers and murderers.
Yeah, good for writers, murderers, readers. It is one I read myself. So I'm just going to put another category to your list.
Let's hope you're not a murderer. She falls
I've
under the
done-
writer.
Yeah, I mean, I've done all this research. Like, seems like a waste otherwise.
All right, we know who to go to if somebody in
Needs to be
the
poisoned.
in the love poems for The Office, we learn exactly what happens in The Office, and in Laura's, you learn how to deal with it.
That's right. People are too boring, you know.
Spice it up.
Spice it up. So yeah, Agatha Christie. What a life, that woman. What a life. But yeah, this is a whole kind of other way to look at her novels. And if you're like me and you've read her books like since you were a tiny tot, you know, not a tiny tot, like a tiny teen. So
a
many
preteen.
times. A preteens. You read them many times. This is like a whole, like I said, a whole other way to kind of look at those same stories.
That's
Very
really
interesting.
neat.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, I think that sums up and wraps up our episode.
I think so.
I will just say we love hearing from you. Follow us on all of our social medias, like, comment, subscribe, because we read all of our comments and love to hear what you guys thought, or if there was some really good nonfiction ones that you've read. And yeah, we will see you all next week.
And if you're recently joined us, or if you recently found the podcast, we would love to hear from you. And of course, anyone, we would love any reviews on the podcast, because that will help other people. That will help other people find us when they do search for something related to book reviews or library.
Follow us everywhere. Woohoo! We'll see you next week. Bye.